Hey, 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 good morning, everyone, and welcome to the First Time Storytelling broadcast. I'm so excited about my guest today, but before I introduce him, a couple notes. Today is Thursday, so today is the day that I do the How to Become a First Time Storyteller free webinar. So all you need to do is head over to the 365 First Challenge Facebook group or page, check out the events, click on that, and then it'll take you to Zoom so that you can register to get the link in order to come in this afternoon or at a later date on a Thursday and learn how to become a first-time storyteller. All right, so today on the First Time Storytelling broadcast, my guest is Kevin Reid. Kevin is really good people. So I've known him now for a couple of years, but that's my personal introduction of him. The professional introduction is that Kevin has been serving on active duty as a Navy Medical Service Corps officer for 26 years. 17 of those years were as an enlisted hospital corpsman before his commissioning. He's been married to his beautiful and wonderful bride, Kim, for the past 25 years, and they have three daughters aged 24, 21, and 20. Kevin is here to share the story of the first phone call he received that changed his life. Welcome to the broadcast.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction. Probably a little overhyped. I hope
No.
I can live up to it. I hope I can live up to it. So I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. For me, it's a real privilege and an honor to get to work with you previously and now in your new venture. So I'm excited to be here and to contribute and share and
Yeah.
tell a little bit about my story.
All right. Well, you are an amazing, awesome person. And I had some rough days back when I was at More4UF as the exercise planner. And when Kevin came in, he always came in and he was extremely helpful and supportive. And that meant the world to me. And then like I said, he's just really good people. So we connected and I feel like we're going to be friends for a
Yes.
very long time. So, all right, let's get into your story. What was happening in your life before we get into the phone call? Paint the backstory for us. What was happening in your life before that call came in?
Sure, absolutely. So before the call that came in that changed my life, I grew up in a very poor home. We grew up in North Carolina, High Point area. Parents, both blue collar workers. Dad was a brick mason. Mom was a factory worker, and really came from very low means, and lived through that up to a point where I was a high school dropout. I'm always instantly reminded of that song. I want to start singing. Was a high school dropout, never made it with the ladies, all that. I was really in a bad spot. I had been dating a girl in high school. That a relationship was going bad. I had been making bad choices about what to do, so I had dropped out, and then I um, went and got my GED, my good enough diploma at the age of 16, which sounds exciting, except it really wasn't. I mean, I was actually pretty smart, but I was not that common sense and not very wise either at the time. So I started making some more bad choices and really was not going very in a good direction. And so um, I went to a place called Job Corps. It's a federal program where I learned how to weld. Did that for about a year, and then came out and was kind of moving in a better direction in life, and then just made some additionally bad choices and then I got physically hurt on the job, and so that was the one thing that kind of derailed me, if you will, from having to do this next step. So I had injured my foot. I was a welder for large pipes, and on the job site one day, one of the cranes was booming a pipe over, and it swung free, hit me, knocked me down, and then crushed my foot. So
Mm.
I was laid up in bed, getting treated for that. And I had actually had a talk with my boss about a week before that about getting a raise. And so it was interesting because he had told me in that discussion that I was making 50 cents an hour less than what he was making. And he had been doing the job for 25 years. And I had already jumped up to a place where I was just under him. So as I laid there in my bed, recovering with my foot injury, I began to kind of think about some of those choices and some of those things. And that was kind of where I was sitting, if I can frame it, in bed, foot up, ice on it. I didn't break it, thank goodness, but it was still pretty badly damaged. And just contemplating, what am I going to do? I mean, I really have no upward mobility here. I didn't have a lot of good direction, a lot of good people kind of mentoring and steering me in the right way. So I was just kind of laying there, almost dejected, and then an opportunity came.
All right. Well, how did that phone call happen? And
Sure,
because that opportunity came knocking, but you did go looking for it.
I did. And so as I was laying there, about I would say about 2 months, 3 months before that, I had ran into a recruiter and just kind of asked the question, "Hey, what's the opportunity like to join the Navy?" I don't know why I was looking at the Navy. I don't know why. It was just one of these random things where I felt like, "Hey, I'm going to ask this guy a couple of questions." So I did, and interestingly enough, they had said no. They said I couldn't join. I had a good enough diploma or a GED, but I didn't have a 10th grade education. I only had 4 credits in high school for ninth grade, and that was it.
Hmm.
And because of that, they said I didn't qualify. So, as I said, I was sitting there in that bed, just kind of not looking hopeful, and even thinking about that particular phone call at that time, going, or that interaction I had, and going, wow, man, I can't even join the Navy. So I'm sitting there, and then the phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's the recruiter. Now, I've done recruiting since then, so I think I now know what happened. He was approaching the end of his month quota without enough people. And suddenly there's all kinds of waivers that are allowed for people, right? So I get this phone call, and he's like, "Hey, we've been looking at your record. We think we can get you a waiver." Now, to back up a little bit more, I had an incident with that girlfriend that I mentioned that kind of led me down a really dark path, and I had gotten some serious charges against me. Luckily, they were all dismissed, but they were still on my record, and they had to be investigated. So I tell that to paint the picture as we start to go forward of the recruitment process, because that was one of the challenges I had to overcome. Of course, I'm laying there with my foot up too. So it's like, well, medically, this is going to be a difficult thing to overcome. So recruiter says, "Hey, why don't you come on down to the office this week, and we can talk some more." And I said, "Okay." So put my clothes on, put my shoes on, sucked it
Well,
up.
how did you feel that you got that call out of the blues? Like, did that give you hope? Did
It
that?
did. No, it did. It did. It gave me a lot of hope, but it also created a lot of anxiety because of because where I was at medically. I knew that I had to go in and get a physical, and I was like, I can't go on a physical right now. I can barely walk. But I took some pain pills and sucked it up, and went down to the recruiter's office and sat down with him and talked. And he was like, "Hey, you want to go to MEPS like tomorrow?" And I think the next day I was doing something, I couldn't go, so it was the next day after that. So 2 days after I met with him, I was on a bus down to Charlotte, North Carolina, from this house, by the way, from this very house that I'm sitting in right now. I think maybe from this bedroom. I said, yeah, I think it was. And I'm headed down to Charlotte, North Carolina, and I go down to MEPS, and I'm starting to get excited, but I'm really, really anxious. And I don't know, the recruiter, all he said to me was, tell them nothing. He said, tell them nothing. Nothing's wrong with you. And I just remember thinking, okay, well, there's nothing wrong with me. Although my foot's killing me, I'm going to figure this out. So then we go in to do the MEPS physical, and I'm doing fine, and we're doing all the things we do. And then we have to go into the doctor's office, where he makes us strip down into our underwear. And then we have to do this incredibly awkward thing called the duck walk. And if you've ever enlisted or tried to enlist or commission into the military, you know that at the MEP Center, they make you do this really weird duck walk where you've got to squat down on your feet and then walk in a squatted position the whole time. My foot was absolutely killing me. And I'm just like, this is it.
That's the test if you're flat-footed, right?
Yeah. It tests if you're flat-footed. I also think it tests some joint disorders, like with your knees or hips. So I'm down on the floor here, walking in this duck, and I'm in quite a bit of pain. But I'm thinking to myself the whole time, this is my only chance. If I don't figure out how to get past this and get into the military, I'm going to be stuck doing this welding job that I'm going to make another 50 cents over the next 25 years, an hour, and I'm not going anywhere. And I had a lot of toxic relationships, from my girlfriend here. My parents and I didn't get along at that time, and it was really not a great environment for me to be in. And my really only hope of having an opportunity, of having a chance to succeed, was to get out. And the military was that vehicle, that venue that could get me to that place. And I was just very hopeful. And luckily, I did that duck walk with a lot of discomfort, but apparently effectively enough for the doc to sign off on it, and I was good to go. So I go into another room after that. The medical's done, and I get told I'm gonna possibly get a career field. And again, because I had not applied or I did not finish high school, at that interview portion, it was very limited. They were telling me I could do this, I could do that, and it was only a few things. And so I didn't even know what I signed up for, because I just wanted out. And I didn't find out until I was in the third or fourth week of boot camp what I was actually supposed to be in the Navy, what I had signed up for. I'd signed all the contracts.
Which was?
Aviation ordnanceman.
Oh.
I was going to be a bomb guy, and I remembered after they told me in boot camp why I signed up for it, because the guy told me it worked with planes, and I thought that was kind of cool. And I thought, well, what job can I get when I get out? Well, I guess I can load luggage on a plane. That's kind of cool. That would be something. And so at the time, again, 19-year-old Kevin Reid trying to figure himself out, going, I think I want to do this. So I got in, swore in, and I think 6 days later, in fact, at that MEP Center, they asked me when did I want to leave, and they said, well, you can leave in 6 days, or you can leave in 2 months. But if you leave in 6 days, you're going to go to Orlando, and if you leave in 2 months, you're going to go to Great Lakes, Illinois. And I was so desperate to get out of there, even though my foot was still hurting. I just said, yeah, 6 days, fine, let's go.
Oh, wow.
And fortunately, my foot did recover. I got better before I had to go and start enduring the rigors of boot camp. But I got to boot camp, and it was frightening. But that call that day was probably, I can say without a shadow of a doubt, changed the entire trajectory of my life to where I'm at today. Because without that phone call coming in, I would have stayed here. I don't know what happened, but I certainly would not have traveled to Florence 3 weeks ago with my wife, and Lake Como, Italy, and Norway, and Philippines, and all the places I've gotten to travel my whole life. Never had those opportunities had that phone call not come.
Wow, that is an incredible story because it was a very well timed phone call and you weren't in the best of places to
Yeah.
do it, but you had to know how that this was it. This was your opportunity. When opportunity comes a knocking, you got to answer and you got to get through it. Now, how did you go from the aviation, the loading bombs
Mhm.
to a corpsman?
Yeah, so that's a funny story because again, 19, 20-year-old Kevin was not very wise. I wasn't very wise then. And I didn't have a lot of mentors steering me along. So um, when I got to boot camp again, a few weeks into boot camp, they invite you to change your job. They give you in the Navy, they give you an opportunity to review your contract. Do you want to keep your job or did you want to change it to something else?
Oh,
And
wow.
I
That
opted to
does
change.
not happen in Marine Corps boot camp.
No, it does not. No, it does not. And so
Wow.
I got to this room with this guy, and he hands me a sheet, and it's every job in the Navy, every rate. We call it a rate, but every rate in the Navy. And I was like, and of course, it was done by letters, right? Like HM for hospital corpsman, YN for yeoman, things like that. And I just remember looking at the list. I didn't even know what anything was. I honestly did not know. I didn't come from a Navy background. I didn't have a Navy family. My dad was drafted into Vietnam in the Army for 2 years. So I didn't know anybody in the Navy. So I was looking at these letters and scratching my head going, I don't know. And that's when I asked, well, what am I? And he says, it's at the top of the page. And AO, what's an AO? Aviation Ordnance. Oh, okay. So I'm a bomb guy. Okay, cool. So well, what do you want to be? And I asked the question, and it still makes me laugh to this day because it's a testimony to my character at the time, and I regret to have this character, but it's true of who I was at the time. I said, what's the easiest job in the Navy? And the guy said, hands down, no questions asked, hospital corpsman, they don't do a thing. And I said, that's the job for me, man. Just sign me up. And I swear it was like I, I don't, it was divine intervention all the way, right? I swear it was providence the whole way because one, that's an untrue statement. I think the guy sitting behind the counter was a bosun mate who had done a lot of hard work on a ship and saw corpsmen doing nothing but hanging out in medical and thought they didn't do it a lot of work. But I learned much differently later. But I was like, yeah, sign me up. So I requested to be a corpsman and they said, sure. And I gave them paperwork. And about 3 weeks later, I got a notification. Hey, congratulations. You're now going to hospital corps school in San Diego, California, to become a hospital corpsman. And I was ecstatic. I was like, oh, this is, again, another opportunity that's come my way that I was not expecting. Now, what I didn't know was that I had also agreed for additional years of service. So my original contract, unbeknownst to me again, because I don't read these things, I just sign them. A lesson to all of you out there: read everything you sign. But I had signed my initial contract was a 3-year commitment in the United States Naval Reserves with a 5-year reserve commitment. And that made me, at the time, they called them TARs, TAR. It was essentially active duty personnel that were on, reservists that were on active duty for a period of time. And so when I got to corps school, I graduated boot camp, I go on to corps school in San Diego. And when I get there, I find out that I'm going to have to sign some additional documents, but I don't find out until much later. So I'll hold before I get to that as a little bit of a teaser because the next big event in my life happens here in corps school in San Diego. I meet my wife, my current wife, my only wife, by the way. And we met there. She was a student. I was a student. I remember very vividly seeing her walk towards me. We were both smokers at the time. Terrible habit. Got over it, thank God. But I was standing in the smoking area there between the hospital and course school, which is funny now thinking about it. But here I was smoking a cigarette. She was walking towards me, surrounded by a sea of guys, and just this little short, cute blonde right in the front, just smiling with her big bright eyes. And if you go on my profile, you'll see my wife. She's a lovely woman. So she's walking towards me, and I'm just like awestruck. So I asked her out that evening. She said no. So we ended up going out the night after that with some friends, and we started dating shortly after that. Well, that story is that we're still married. So we've done something right along the way. But as we progressed through course school together in our relationship, I'm still that same old sort of immature, not a very wise guy in that point in my life. And so I'm still making dumb decisions like, leaving base while on duty and falling asleep in class and not passing uniform inspections. It's just these dumb early entry enlisted kind of mistakes that you can make when your head's not screwed on straight. So I get to the end of graduation, and it's the night before graduating course school, and someone shoves a piece of paper in front of me, and it's a 2-year extension, and I have to sign it. And now I've suddenly figured out I need to start reading things before I sign it. So I'm reading it, and I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not signing up for 2 more years. And they very politely took the paperwork back and said, okay, thank you. Tomorrow, instead of going to graduation, please go down to the personnel office where they can reassign you. And they reassigned me to where? And they said, whatever ship in the Navy needs you, because you're not going to be a corpsman. You're going to be an undesignated seaman going to the fleet, and you get to, figure out what you want to be after 3 years, after you, needle gun a few decks and paint a few ships hanging off the side. And I was like, well, hold on. So if I don't sign that piece of paper, I don't graduate? And they said, yeah, no, you have to sign this piece of paper to graduate and become a corpsman. Even though they waited till the very end of course school to tell me and give me that piece of paper. But so obviously I signed it. And my wife and I wound up together before we were married. We weren't married yet, in Millington, Tennessee, where we both got stationed together. And we would continue dating for about 6 more months, and then we got married.
Well, that's so crazy. What's crazy about the journey is that, well, I mean, corpsmen are like nurse level individuals, for those that are listening, right? For like the military. And here's Kevin, who has a GED and, only spent a little bit of his time in school as a freshman. So while the wisdom is not there, the intellect is there. And while it might seem like, and yes, the people can be a little tricky in the military, but at the same time, you end up being put where you're going to have to do the right thing for your own good. And there's no, like, the alternative is very clear, like, no, this is not where I want to go. And there's a lot of people that the military is life changing because of that, because it forces people that are not paying attention to the consequences of their decisions. And now, it becomes very clear that there are consequences to the decisions that you make. And that can really set somebody off on the right path, which it did for you.
Yeah.
Or you don't make it, and you either get kicked out of the military, or you really hate your time because you felt tricked and you did not want to wisen up to what the opportunities were. So I know, and I would love to continue to tell this story, but because we are tight on time, but I want to fast forward
Sure.
to because you had another big leap that took place after 17 years that
Yeah.
changed things again, right? So obviously getting married, starting to have kids, you started getting committed to what you were doing, learning, and being the best that you could be as a corpsman.
Mhm.
And then what happened? Because you're at 17 years, you've progressed well in your career, and
Yeah.
another opportunity comes a knocking.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, absolutely. And even to further that background, I spent 2 years as an E2, my first 2 years, and that was just because of, again, me. And the maturity that came after that led to that 17-year opportunity, or opportunity 17 years later, came from my wife very kindly and gently, you know, kicking me in the rear, and motivating me to be a better person. So I owe a lot of who I am today, mostly because of her, because in that early years, that's what happened. She motivated me, inspired me to pursue and become a better. So through the next 17 years, I would progress up into the rank of chief hospital corpsman. And then I was recruiting in Utah. Um, and I actually made this phone call for another reason. I was at the time working with an applicant who was applying to be a commissioned officer in the Medical Service Corps, and I was speaking to then Commander Ann Swap. Commander Swap is now Rear Admiral Swap, 2-star, and amazing woman, amazing lady, amazing officer. But I was talking to her about this applicant, and she said, "Chief, when are you going to apply for commission?" And it caught me off guard because I wasn't looking for it and I wasn't expecting it. And at this point in my career, I was in at 15 at this point, and I was pretty happy with the road and trajectory I was on in the next 5 years to retire. And I remember saying to her at the time, "I'm not." And she said some encouraging statements about me, about we had interacted in the past. And she said, "We really would love to have you as a medical service corps officer. You should think about it." And I thought, I don't know. So I go home and talk to my wife, and again, in a very loving and encouraging way, she smacks me in the back of the head and says, "Are you stupid? Come on, somebody calls and gives you an opportunity like this. You've got to take them up on it." So I call her back the next day and I say, "Yeah, I think I can do this. I think I will apply." She said, "Good, you've got about 10 days to get your entire application in," which included a GRE test that I hadn't studied for. It included some medical stuff that I needed to get taken care of. It included, getting interviews and all these other things. Now, luckily at the time I was a recruiter, so some of that stuff was pretty simple. Like I could call people that I had been working with in the past and get their buy-in. And interestingly enough, then Commander Swap recommended someone for me to get interviewed by. I called that gentleman and asked him for an interview. Actually emailed him, and he wrote back and said, "Hey, I'm not really going to do this because, I've been told I'm a really harsh grader, and people get bad scores from me sometimes, and they get very disappointed and they're upset." And in my, I would say by this point, arrogant way, I kind of responded back with something to the effect of, "Thanks, I think I can handle a tough interview, sir." And he put me on a conference call with about 3 or 4 other officers on a Saturday, and that was very uncomfortable. They definitely used that time to humble me a little bit. But I will say, I did recruiting for 2 years up to that point. I'd never seen a more glowing recommendation letter written by someone from an interview than he wrote for me. And I was actually so shocked by that letter that I called him and said, "Sir, I think you sent this to the wrong person. I think you may have accidentally filled out the wrong thing." And he was like, "No." He goes, "You did really well." He goes, "We were ribbing you a lot because of what you said in your email, but you really held your own." So that all of that documentation, that process, including the GRE, which by the way, I had to go take at a moment's notice at the local university, sit down cold, take it. Very fortunate to guess correctly on most of those questions. And got the application through, and then got accepted. And got accepted at a graduate school in Virginia. Moved across the country, went to grad school, and the gentleman that interviewed me was actually stationed there in DC at the time, and was kind enough to do my commissioning ceremony when I graduated at Marymount University there in Arlington, Virginia. So extremely, extremely blessed to have him there and be a part of that process. And Bob Fry, if you're watching, sir, I appreciate it, because that did really change my life again. And so did Admiral Swap's intervention directly. That call made all the difference in my current life, certainly.
Oh, wow. Yeah. And that's, that's the beauty of the military. And when people are good people and you're like, hey, you need to do this. And they listen and like, yeah, I do need to do this. Let me go ahead and do it. And actually, next month, August 31st, one of my mentor or someone that I consider a mentor will be on. And he, same thing, like, hey, Anne, when are you getting promoted? And I was not planning on getting promoted at the time. And because he said that, and he said, hey, come into my office, it changes things. It changes the trajectory that you're on. If you say, oh yeah, you're right. And in your case, you've always had your lovely bride Kim there to be
That's
like,
right.
slap a crying behind the head, like you said, and you need to do this. And it was very clear you need to do this because you're incredible naval officer, and you do your work at top-notch level, and it's very appreciated by anyone and everyone that meets you and comes across, and it saves lives. I mean, at the end of the day, you really, we kind of get to all say that to some extent, but you really get to say that the work that you do saves lives. So all right,
we're very fortunate there.
yeah. So for everyone who's listening, so Kevin has just returned back to the States. So he's in a state of quarantine, and he'll be going to his last duty station. Tell us a little bit more about that before we get into the first time landing.
So I am headed to U.S. Northcom in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Very excited about the opportunity for both me and my wife. We had 3 daughters, and they've all moved out. The last 2 left us when we were in Germany. So this is our first PCS move as empty nesters. So we're super excited. And we are moving into Colorado. Kim's gonna work up in Denver. I'm gonna work in Colorado or down in Colorado Springs. And it's going to be a new transition for us. Kim's going to start looking at putting her path and her career on a trajectory that has prominence, and mine's going to start to slide to the background. But during the next 3 to 4 years, while I'm there in Colorado, I'm going to do more COVID work. Exciting. Spent the last 5 months doing that. So I've kind of geared up for it. But I'm excited to be a medical planner there, a joint regional medical planner for FEMA Region 10, which is Alaska, Washington, Oregon, and Idaho. So that'll be my primary area of focus, and I'll be working defense support to civil authorities for DoD activities medically into those states should they require them. And they have, obviously, with COVID, but even previously, with earthquakes and other things that have happened, there's been opportunities for us to provide military medical resources to the U.S. government and local state and local officials there. So, yep.
That's a pretty high level medical planner billet. So that again speaks to to who you are to have been selected for that position. And I don't doubt at all you're going to do some massive contribution and learn a lot in the process as well for whatever you transition into once you retire. So
figure out what I want to be when I grow up. Right.
Yeah, that'll be the next big phase and change. All right. Well, before we start playing the first time lightning round, is there a way, if people are listening and they've lost touch with you or they want to connect with you, to get it, to connect with you?
Sure. So obviously on Facebook, I use that exhaustively. I think at times my kids are matters. I only have a Snapchat account because they have it. So I get to watch their snaps, but I don't use it that regularly or frequently. So I think Facebook, I am on Twitter. I don't usually post. I usually go on there just to see the destruction the world's going through. But but mostly on Facebook. I'm on here. So KReads5 is my Facebook username. So if you can look me up on there, or click on somewhere here, and you can send me a friend
Yep.
request. I'm glad to accept you.
Awesome. All right. And like I did message you on Facebook.
Yeah,
Once you're settled into Colorado, I will be coming for a visit because
absolutely.
it's not that far of a drive, and I do love Colorado. It won't
And we
be
love
what.
Vegas. Our 15-year wedding anniversary was celebrated in Vegas. We
Oh
got
well.
married by Elvis right there in front of the Bellagio.
Oh, excellent. Well,
Remarried.
you know that you and Kim have a place to stay when you do come to Vegas.
Thank
Okay, then let's get into the first time lightning round. So the way that
you.
this
Awesome.
works is I'm going to give Kevin 10 different first time options. And similar to if he was on the app, if it's something that he's done before, he's going to say up. If it's something that he's never done, not interested, it's left. And if something that he's never done, would like to do, then it's right. And we add it to the list. Ready?
Okay, ready.
Okay. Ride or drive a dune buggy?
Right.
Right, we're adding it to the list.
Yep.
I know the answer to this one, but I'm sure you have a great story. So go on a World War I battlefield tour.
Done it.
Done it. What was that like?
Normandy, absolute, or Bellawood. I apologize. Normandy was World War II, but it was part of the same tour. We went to Normandy and then Bellawood, the 100th anniversary for Bellawood ceremony. I was there, and it was magical. It is just an amazing place to go. And some people will you don't appreciate how much people appreciate you or Americans until you go visit a site like that, and the locals come out and they're just so thankful for you, and you're like, I wasn't even there, World War One, but they're just so thankful for Americans over there. It was really amazing experience, and get to see all the people dressed up. We were in our nice uniforms. It was really nice.
All right. Volunteer at a church.
Done it.
Done it. Remember your first time volunteering?
Oh, let's see. My gosh, it would have been really young. I think my first time that I can remember as an adult was in Illinois. I volunteered to work with the kids group, and I would later become the kids director uh, for that church. So yeah, be careful what you volunteer for, especially in church.
Take a life of its own.
That's right.
All right. Take a polar bear plunge.
Done it
Done it. That was
in
that when you.
Illinois.
Oh, Illinois. I was say so before you went to Norway.
Yeah. No, this was in I think 1990. When was it? No, it was 2002. 2002. Our church that we were going to at the time had a polar bear plunge, and so we had to break the ice out of Lake Michigan and jump in. And my wife always complains about that because all the people that were going in got to go in these tents that were heated, and we got to stand around in our swim trunks waiting to go in. While all the family members got to hang out outside the tent where it wasn't heated and it was cold and miserable and windy. So we run out, jump in the water, come out, and go back into the tent while my wife's out there for like 35 minutes in the freezing cold with like no heat at all. So she constantly reminds me that was one of those bits where I got the better end even though I was going in the water.
Do you feel that way though? How long
You jumped in. All you had to do was jump in, but the problem is it was so much ice in the water that you got banged around a little bit.
uh,
But you jumped in and then you just jumped out. So I didn't have to spend a lot of time in there.
okay, so you felt that maybe she was colder over a
Oh
longer
yeah. Well,
duration of
she
time.
certainly felt that way, and she told me.
Okay. All right, next one. That's a funny story. Next one. Milk a cow.
Done it. Not too recently, actually. Did it in I think 3 years ago. We did it in Switzerland.
Hmm.
We stayed at a Airbnb that was on a farm, and it was the whole family was there, and we all got to. And in Switzerland they have the cows with bells, which my wife absolutely loves. So they would bring the cows home in the evening, and one night the farmer asked us if we wanted to go milk them, and we're like, that would be super awesome. So we all got to go down and have a hand at milking the cows there, and Swiss cows. The milk still looks the same though.
Was it easier or harder than you thought?
So they let us do a little bit of manual, but he's got a whole system set up. So once you hook the things up to the teats for them, it's a big suction machine that sucks it out and does all the pumping for them. So he doesn't have to sit there and do it all the time, but he let us do it manually. But yeah, it was a little more complicated manually than I kind of imagined. Yeah, once you hooked it up in the machine, it was like, oh, okay, so this is easy. This is really
Yeah, much easier this way.
Yep.
Okay, participate in a play.
Done it. Gosh, let's see. The one that comes to mind was a church play I did where I was a war veteran who had gotten shot and killed and was going into heaven and was trying to talk to his family about the experiences that he was having in heaven.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Drive a Bentley Continental GT.
Right.
Right. All right.
Yes,
Do
right.
origami.
I know I have done it. I don't have a cool story. I think my wife taught it as we homeschooled our kids for a large portion of the time, and we were stationed in Okinawa for 3 years. So I know she taught or had someone come over and teach the girls one time, and so I've sat around with them and done it, but nothing really incredible story for that.
Well, I mean, it's still cool that the first time you did it was in Japan.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Sometimes you have a pretty wonderful life and you forget it. Like I was in Japan doing origami, like a big deal. And you're like, wait, what? Listen to yourself talk.
Yep. Well, we do sometimes take it for granted where the military takes us and the opportunities it does provide us. Yeah. Okay, dance a waltz.
I'm going to say swipe right only because my wife will kill me if I don't. She wants to learn to dance. I'm not necessarily a fan of dancing, but I think that would be something. It would be kind of cool if we did that together.
I think you would both enjoy it. I didn't know if you're going to say that, yes, at the wedding you had done that. So still on the list. All right, final one. Eat at a Michelin Star Restaurant.
Did it. In Germany, right near our house, in a town called Waldenburg. It's where the Ritter Sport Chocolate Factory is, by the way. It's I think a 1 or 2 star Michelin restaurant, and we went there for I think it was Kim's birthday actually last year, and it was just us and a couple of friends. And
was it German food, or what kind of food was it?
It was a mix of German and I think French. My story from that I remember, other than we may have had a little more wine than we should have, was there was this it's a multi-course meal, so they bring out them in sets, and so I had ordered we got the set menu, and so they bring out the soup, and I'm so excited for the soup because it was champignon soup or mushroom soup, and I love mushroom soup, and so I was like super excited. But it comes out and it's in a cup like that big with a tiny little spoon in it. And I just remember being so dejected that like, where's the soup? And then I tasted it and I was really angry because it was the best soup I was like, you can't give me this. This is the best soup ever. And you gave me like that much. You gave me like 2 tablespoons. Can I get some more, please? And that was my memory from that. And I remember Kim and I were sitting there looking at each other, and I said, hey, can I have yours? And she goes, no, this is great. I'm like, and I'm trying to get the waiter. I'm like, can we get more? And he's like, no, that's not how it works. My wife's all embarrassed because I'm trying to, ruin the whole experience by getting some more mushroom soup. So I do remember
that. You really took us back because I love how you were looking around like you really wanted some more.
Oh, yeah. I was like, what?
Get a to-go cup. I'd like to take this home, please. Can you pour some?
I was like, I need a recipe or something. Like, can you just bring me a little bowl? Like, put a little Tupperware on it.
Yeah. All right. Well, final question, and it's probably a loaded question for you because what you have been doing for the last 5 months. But
Sure.
how have you been making the best out of the current situation with the pandemic?
Well, so for me, it started back in mid-February, and I worked at my office there at Health Services in Marfort in Stuttgart, overseeing the uh, medical needs and requirements for Marines in Europe and Africa. So when it started, it became a very big deal for us, and for the first probably 2 months, I was working 6 days, 7 days a week, sometimes 10, 12-hour days, working on briefs and getting things together and writing orders and doing all this other administrative stuff and doing research. And over the past couple of months, as I gotten ready to leave, a lot of that stuff has been given over to other people in my office so that they can do those things. And a lot of them are already doing the work. I was just the face that had to be, giving the briefs every day. So I think the biggest thing for me that's changed has been obviously we couldn't travel, so that was quite annoying when you're in Europe and you can't travel. But now that we're here in the States, I think that getting used to the face mask is just. I understand. I know why it's important, and I'm going to wear it. We had to wear it on the plane for 10 plus hours. That is miserable. And so that's the one thing that I'm still trying to get used to. I have to remind myself every time I walk out, where's my mask? Where's my oh okay, I've got my mask. I've got extras now. We have like 10 masks, like 2 in the car, 2 in this place, 2 over there. And so I think that part of my life has changed probably more from a very day-to-day interaction piece than anything else.
And big difference between state to state, country to
Mhm.
country, and how well, in Europe things are being handled. They open back up, didn't have the same madness as here,
Yeah.
and yeah, and it is the American. So if you're in the military or if you're not and you're not tracking this, where military members are deploying or going, those countries have, high level of concerns.
Yeah.
So I communicate with a couple of people that still, in Okinawa, and the Japanese got very mad at the military service members because they're the ones bringing it into
Yeah.
their countries. So, when you're grasping the situation only at how it applies to you, then that's tough enough to grasp. And then you have to really expand out on how, it impacts just everything. And that can become quite overwhelming. But there are a lot of planners, a lot of people in different
Uh-huh.
positions that are trying to solve these problems or trying to figure it out. So it's
Yeah, I
definitely
think the
not
hard.
just at the federal or state level, it's across the board in organization, the military.
Mhm. Yeah, I think the hardest part really is just trying to make sense of all the various guidance. I mean, I go back to February when this thing started, and there was some guidance that came out, and then some more guidance, and then the volume of the guidance became so overwhelming and it was changing at such a rapid pace that it was no way really to digest it, to be able to kind of really consume it to the point of being able to practice it before something else had changed. And I will say, I think at this point we're I won't say we're stable. There's probably going to be some more evolving as we go forward, but certainly the pace and the amount of change has gone down quite a bit, and that's good because that was the hardest part I think for the very beginning of this was it was novel, new. It was creating all these various changes that people had really never experienced before, and now I think we've had that round of experience with what some of those changes are like, and if we have to kind of revert back to them, it might be difficult. But at least we know what they are. We're not
Yeah.
trying to learn it and figure it out as we go. So I think some of that is making this a little bit more palatable at this point. But I think a lot of, I mean, we were definitely going stir crazy. I can tell you that. We were, my wife and I both, because I mean, I worked from home for 2 months straight, like without going into the office. So, and then when we finally got set free, we went. I think we went to Cologne, and then we went to Austria, and then made our trip down to Florence right before we left. And now we're here in the States. trekking across the country. It's going to be interesting, and I'm certainly hopeful that this situation gets better soon, especially for some of the states. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, stay safe as you're making your transition into Colorado and getting settled in. But thank you for coming on and spending some time with me this morning. It's always such a pleasure to speak with you, and such
Yeah.
an incredible story, and just the changes and the things that have happened in your life, and the way that you have been
Yeah.
able to grab the positive of it and continue to, stack on that, is it makes for a really great story.
Well, thank
So
you. I think if I could leave you with this, it would be my wife's advice to me, my kids, all of us was always, you know, uh, when a door opens, try walking through it, and you never know. And if you don't know, you won't know what to do unless you walk through the door. And so when those opportunities come, just you know, don't turn them down, especially if there's some difficulty involved with it. Just try to go after it and see what happens. And the worst case scenario is you either don't get it or you get to turn it down. But at least you know what you're getting into.
yeah, great wisdom and advice, and I need to have Kim come on the show as well.
Absolutely. I will talk to her today.
All right. Great. Thanks, Kevin, and enjoy the rest of your week and weekend.
Thank you.